Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Strategy Gaming Dojo, where we find, learn, and play the great strategy games. We are currently playing AGEOD Civil War II. We're doing a Let's Play tutorial where I'm kind of playing through the game and explaining things as we go. Just a quick recap here. All that's happened so far, we've played one turn. We played early April of 1861. This game moves on 2 week turns, or there are 2 turns per month, let's put it that way. So there is early April. We're now in late April. The only thing that's happened is we have taken our Carolina department, as it's called. That's just a grouping of soldiers that were in Carolina. Um, Under the command of PGT Beauregard, we have moved them from Fort Johnson over here to Fort Sumter, so they are besieging Fort Sumter. Now, we've gone through how you look through your messages down here, and we'll do that again in a second to make sure we haven't missed anything. We went over the different map overlays, which can be very helpful for determining, certain things, supply, what are objective towns, strategic towns, uh, you know, how much loyalty different regions have. So we've talked about the map a little bit, where we have, we can scoot this way out. So if we look at what's happened so far, we're down here in South Carolina. This is really the only um, quote unquote army. Technically in this game, it's not yet an army, but it's really the only troops that we have on the board that are doing anything historically, right? They took Fort Sumter first, and then everybody started mustering up. If you do look up here to Richmond, so let's back this off again. Uh, Here's South Carolina. This is where the action's happening. If we go up here to Richmond, you see that our Confederate leadership has started to um, commission generals, and we will look at them. We've got, 4 1-star generals. We have another generals pool here with 3 other 1-star generals. We do have a few boats that are now being commissioned, although they cannot move yet, which is what this locked in red means. We also have a reserve brigade that has been mustered, so that's building up. And again, while that builds up, it cannot move. It's in training. It's getting its, all of its equipment. It's, coming up to full strength, and we'll see that happen. Now, we've also talked about the 6 kind of main things that matter here: victory points, money, conscripts, so this is manpower, like every other war game like this. We have war supplies, which is kind of an abstraction that stands in for everything that we want to build. We need war supplies for that, and we're going to try to build that up as much as we can. This is our rail points. Rail points are very important, especially for the South, where you don't have as good a transportation, and you need to move things around for both supply, getting supply to your troops, and also to move your troops later on, maybe from east to west or west to east. We see that's in red, so we have a current deficit in rail supply. We need more, and we will be working on this. If you read this tooltip, it says your railroad supply capacity is average. You need a minimum of 102 points for full transportation. Um, and then it talks about the river supply, which is the next tooltip here, or it's not a tooltip, that is an actual representation of how many rail or river points we have. Let's go back to rail points here and read on. You need a minimum of 102 points for full transportation. So as you see, we have 73 right now. So we have a pretty decent deficit, and there's not a whole lot we can do about that on this turn. But going forward, it's definitely something to watch here. We do not want this to be red, and we will try to build that up as much as we can. Same with the river. It says we need 40 for average transportation for the river. We've got 20, so we're behind. Now, this 7th thing here is foreign intervention. I mentioned before, we're not going to be really worrying about foreign intervention. So we've talked about these things. again, the map overlays, and then we've got the three items up here where we can go look for information or you know, do something in game to build up these other items. So we have our almanac here, our book of all information, where we can search our forces, look at our war production, various treasury, where we've already raised taxes um, and printed money. So we've, raised quite a bit of money doing those two things. Government, we've said we're not going to do any of these items because we're not really worried about foreign intervention. We've got the big map. We've got our regions that we can search. Uh, we talked about objectives last time um, and then also just the background of the war. So what have we done this turn? We've got our almanac, we've got our cards. So you look for information here. You can also take those certain actions that I showed you, whether it be the Department of State or your Department of Interior, where you print the money, raise the taxes. That's this almanac. These cards are various cards that you can play that will have certain, you know, reactions on the board. So this turn, let's go back down here and look about where we have actually played cards. So we played a card here um, to build up. Let's see if we can see that. Let's make sure that's still on the board and we got that right. Oh, I guess I backed out of the game or where it's saved. This was not saved. We're going to build a telegraph line right here in Charleston. Now, as you saw, as I roll over these things, the regions where I can put them open up. They go green. And then you just, click and hold on the left button and drag them to where you want those done. So we've put a telegraph line now in Charleston, or one will be being built. I think it takes like 9 turns. So that will be built. We will not have that card available to us until that's done. Then we'll get that a card, one of those cards back, and we will build another telegraph line. The reason being is it gives you victory points. It could also help with your communications, if you think about why you would build a telegraph line. But for our purposes, it only costs $5,000 and it gives you victory points, which we want as many of those as we can get. So we're going to build up our territories. Now, the other thing we talked about is exporting bales. Let's go down here to Texas. This is the only region where you can export bales, and that will just give us some money. And it tells you all about it here. Effects plus $15,000. So we always want to remember to export bales. We have 11 more of these cards. You can only play one per turn until they're out. I will tell you that this kind of takes you most of the way through the year when I guess the cotton season would have been. And then these will pop back up here again in 1862 come the spring and we'll start playing them again. Why turn down $15,000? We don't want to do that. What were our other items here? We talked about oh, we definitely want to do this. Develop territory. So develop territory, as you can see, it gives us some loyalty. It gives us development points in a region. It gives us victory points, and it only costs $5,000. Now, I think previously we had decided to do this down in Corinth, and we did. So let's put that in Corinth. So that will build up this region. You'll see that card is now gone. When this is done, when this is built up, it says this is 9 turns. So this will take 9 turns. When that's done, we'll have another one of those cards to play. Um, let's talk about demonstration. Now, people go back and forth on demonstration. You do want to disrupt loyalty in these Union towns. And also you see this broken railway. That's happened because there's been some disaffection with the Union here in Baltimore. Now, you can help make that happen by essentially bankrolling demonstrations in the north. So you will be paying people money, troublemakers, to go up here in the north, and they may break, rail lines. They may cause other things to happen here. Let's see. Enemy cities with at least 15 citizens loyal to our cause can be targeted. Chance of success is 75%. And what happens is the effect is the enemy loyalty will be lowered by 25%. This does cost $10,000. Now, I can tell you, as the South, early here in the game, we're not going to want to be throwing away money. But that being said, uh, you know, why not have some demonstrations in Alexandria? That's right next to our territory here. So let's do one or two of those. Maybe not DC. Let's do Annapolis. Okay. So now, we've played two of these cards. You see, we've only got three left. We can play all of these in one turn if we want. Um, but while they're going on, it will be ticking down from five. So these will go on, I think, for 4 turns. So you have five of these cards that each last 4 turns. Now, as soon as those are over, we'll get those cards back. There are other cards here. None of them, I think, are really applicable now. Later on, we'll probably do roads, open trail, or clearing. Clearing out here in Virginia, in Western Virginia, can sometimes help build up things. It's +5 development points and $5,000. Heck, let's just do it out here in Staunton. Staunton is an important place along our rail line going west. So sure, let's build it up. The more we can build up, the better. It boosts our loyalty and makes things travel faster. So those are our cards. And again, these first 2 turns, you don't have a ton to do. The war doesn't really get kicked off until Fort Sumter, until we take Fort Sumter here, and that's resolved. Now, one thing I will point out about Beauregard here, he was a three, I think this Carolina department was like 314 in combat power. When we moved them over here to the tile for Sumter, we're now at 215. Now, why is that? Well, if you look here, and we'll zoom in on them, this blue right here is cohesion. So moving these guys over here to Sumter, and maybe there's cannon being shot at them, and just moving across the water, that has lowered our cohesion, and our combat power has gone down. And just sitting on this tooltip, you can see each one of our brigades. So you see Beauregard and his stats. Then you see Bartow's brigade. That's down, that's 60 of a maximum of 81. So their combat power has gone down. For South Carolina is now 50 of 57, and so on and so forth. So our combat power has gone down because our cohesion, it looks like it's only about half mast there. So you'll see these are manpower. The red is manpower uh, on a comparison to what it could be, then cohesion, and then supply. And the more you're out of supply and cohesion, manpower, it dynamically updates this combat power to give you kind of an idea of that entire force, what they bring to the table. So let's go up here and look at some of the generals that have now become available for us. Now, we don't have anywhere to put them yet. So these guys are sitting here in Richmond. They're thinking about, war strategy or whatever it is that generals sit around and do when they don't have an army. Most of these guys, we are going to make division generals, and as you see here, these are even called 61 division generals. We cannot form divisions yet. That will not happen until October. In October, we can start making divisions, and we'll really go into these command points that we were talking about last episode, because forming divisions is very beneficial for your command points, so you're not getting penalties. But let's just look at these guys for a second. MJ Thompson, you see his command rating is 421. You see this seniority number. Those are things we will be getting into later when we actually use them. Seniority runs from higher to lower, meaning his seniority is 80 if we look at Beauregard down here, I'm going to really try to use the mini map so I don't make you nauseous moving around here. If we look at Beauregard, his seniority is a 6. So the more senior you are, the lower that number is, all the way down to 1. So later on in the war, when we have a very senior general, let's say Robert E. Lee, he will be a seniority 1. It can't go lower than that. Can't go to 0. So his seniority 6 is very, very good for Beauregard, and that will go into how you promote people. Um, for instance, just I'll give you a for instance, although this is going to be important and covered later. If MJ Thompson up there with the seniority 80, if we tried to, you know, put him in charge of something that Beauregard was in charge of, there all heck would break loose because of the seniority system. MJ Thompson has a lot less seniority than PGT Beauregard. So, there is a good system. I think it's a very interesting system. It's one of the true challenges of the game is how you promote your leaders and get them where you want them and in the right roles. And it's something we'll really focus on later, especially after October when we can do divisions, and then eventually we can form corps in 1862. And I find it a lot of fun, messing around with these different groupings of troops and stuff and trying to get them optimized for to have the best fighting force. So we'll also see with MJ Thompson, he's got some special skills. He's a supply ranger, 15% reduction to supply consumption out in mountain wilderness, swamp, or woods. And it applies to all elements of the stack. We talked about this before. It's very important that you recognize whether things apply to all elements of the stack he's in or just to the elements he directly commands. So those are the two different ways that special abilities work. They can either apply to everything in his stack. So if we had a bunch of armies here, or a bunch of elements, brigades here made up of elements, and let's say Whiting was in charge of those, these special things would still apply to them because it's all elements in this stack. So that's a good thing. And then Deep Raider, and again, this gives you some information. We can read through that later if you want. As you can tell, Supply Ranger, Deep Raider, we're going to be sending MJ Thompson west out into the hinterlands, right? We want to get him out here uh, in the mountains, in the wilderness, because he's got these advantages. Now, N.S. Evans, so Nate Evans, let's see what he's got going on. He's a drunkard. Uh, I just find that funny. He was known as a drunkard. I mean, look at the guy. He looks like he's drunk right now. He's a drunkard level 1. So this takes away initiative. This is a very bad uh, this is a very bad ability. So, but this one only applies if the leader is in command of the entire stack. And this goes to seniority. He's seniority 90, Thompson's seniority 80. So right now, as we sit, Thompson is in command of this stack, or would be if we had elements here, because he has a better seniority. So seniority 80, Evans seniority 90, Ruggles 92, and Whiting is 93. So as you can see, they're listed here by seniority. This is how the command structure would work in this stack. So Evans, evidently him being a drunkard only really hurts us if he's the top dog in the stack. So we'll just always make sure he's not truly in command of any stacks. So I just wanted to show you that, kind of funny. Same. None of these guys have special skills. They will really be division commanders. Command rating 311, 311, 322. These guys are kind of generic in a way. They lead divisions. They really take on more of the characteristics of the main guy in command. And they will be underneath. They'll be like brigadier generals, would be a way to think of them. So We've gone, this has really turned into a tutorial. I'm not sure how much we're actually playing. We've played some cards. We've looked at, all of our information here. The gear is uh, units that we can recruit. And if you look at this now, we've got all selected, and you can see here that you can filter them by regions. So right now, we've only got Deep South, which is South Carolina. SC, the only place where we could potentially muster troops right now is down in South Carolina. So let's go there. Let's say that we wanted to form this brigade. uh, it tells you about it. It's got, well, let's click on that. It's got some infantry. It's got infantry conscript, cavalry conscript. You can see it over here to the right. It would have a combat power of 61, although I can tell you it does not start there. And then in green, it shows you all of the places where you can muster these troops. Now it keeps popping us back over here to Greenville when we click on it. That's because it takes us to the place maybe that would be most advantageous, or maybe Actually, I'll look that up before the next episode, why it pops us up over there. It's not necessarily important. You can, pull, drag this card out, and put this guy in any of these places in South Carolina that are green, and it will muster those troops. Now, I will tell you that those start at so the combat power of it will start at 0, and it will build up. So it will not be able to be moved. It will have that stripe down here with a lock. You cannot move it while it's mustering, and that it's going into recruitment, it's getting its supplies, whatever. You cannot do anything with it. And then slowly you'll see the combat power build up. I think it generally takes about 4 turns, 3 or 4 turns, for this thing to come to full strength. Um, so it builds up over time. Now, if we were to get attacked right away, it will activate and try to defend, but it will do it at that much less combat power. So right now, you can look, we can go all. These are the only troops that we could pull up, we could recruit and put in the field right now. I will tell you kind of a differentiation here. Here are your regular troops, of course, gunboats, self-explanatory, and also artillery, self-explanatory, but volunteers. So one thing I will point out while we're looking at this, you could do 2 of these. So you could, if we pull this out and put it down on the map, why don't we just do that? We're going to want one in Charleston anyway, uh, but we'll do that in 1 second because we want to look. And how do you decide if you want these troops? Well, you need them for some reason. Obviously, is why you're even thinking about it. But you can see the stats here on map 0, available 2. So that's what this 2 is up here, meaning we can do one here, and after we place that on the map, we could do another one here in Greenville, which obviously the game really wants us to put something in Greenville. Not really, but it seems to. Um, Overall combat strength is only 15. These guys are the volunteers. They're smaller forces. Think of them like garrisons almost. They are very, very beneficial to you as the Southern player because they establish zones of control, for instance. So the Union can't just take cavalry and run it all over the South, because when you put these guys down, they don't cost much. They give you a minimal amount of defense in important places. So if you're worried about amphibious landings, it gives you something there. That's historically accurate as well, but they're very important and they don't cost much. And you'll always know them because it'll show you the state right here that they're a volunteer from. So this is just like militia uh, that's coming up that's, maybe is older men in the community or younger men in the community or the guys that didn't get put into the main fighting forces. Um, it's them protecting their towns, things like that. Think of it that way. So they have, like I said, they have very limited combat power. We see 15 here. Um, but they don't cost much. They cost 15 money, which, we've got plenty, we've got a decent amount of money right now. They cost 7 conscripts, which is your manpower. So we've got 113, as you see up here. So money, conscripts, or manpower. And they only cost 2 war supply, which is really the most important thing early on in the South, is that, you know, we do not have much war supply, and we're going to desperately be trying to build that up. So you don't want to waste it. But 2 is not a big deal. It will be nice to have something here at Charleston. This will also allow us, once we take Sumter, to take this entire force, which is more professional type troops, um, north, and use these guys to help us defend Virginia. So we'll be taking most of this north. So it'll be nice to have like a little militia here in what is a very important town in Charleston. So enough about that. We'll come back to that in the future as we keep recruiting more troops. I just wanted to mention again, this is all we could recruit right now. We're on all, this is it. Next turn, I believe, we get a whole bunch of troops that are available, and we'll go even more in depth into how to recruit troops. Um, let's go back up here to our almanac. And I think I mentioned earlier or last episode that we had some more commanders here. We saw that. We also have an admiral. So we have this Georgia squadron. Oh yeah, J.O. Shelby. We're going to go out and look at him really quickly here in a minute. Um, Georgia squadron. So we have an admiral. Um, we were also told this down here in our messages that what's come available. So we have Winchester Militia. You can hit on Winchester. Oh, I'm sorry. I always do that because in most games you would click on that. We hit on the boot. This brings us up to Winchester. So as you can see, Winchester is, here's Alexandria, here's DC. This is the famed Shenandoah Valley. Winchester is a very important town for us. Oh, I was going to mention, you can also see here in gray. Once these are gray, they're controlled by us in the Confederacy, and we have troops there. If they're kind of this brownish, we control it. There are no troops. And then you can see how many ground forces are actually here. So let's see. We have the Winchester Garrison here. It can't move. I think that continues on. You can see here that they are militia or volunteers. And then we have another Winchester militia. The game just gave us that for free. So, looking down there, it says Winchester militia is now active. These guys were already created. They were out here. They have no restrictions on them as of right now. They can move. So we've already got a garrison here. We're going to take these guys, and this will help me show you move, and we're going to go put them in Harpers Ferry. Now, this, is historical, of course. The Confederates, went and took Harpers Ferry. There's a big depot there. Um, maybe we can click on Harpers Ferry and see what we got. Oh, this is just showing us this information. We'll know more when we go over here tomorrow. Well, I say tomorrow, the next turn. Industries and Armory. This city has industrial facilities, including armories. Control click on any city sprite to see what it's got. So let's do that. Yeah, we have Harper's Ferry Depot. It does 9 supply and 2 ammo. Harper's Ferry itself, 13 supply. And Harper's Ferry Armory is going to give us money, supply, ammo, and it says land construction capacity. We'll get into that some other time. So you just control click on a city and you can see all these little things in it. I can tell you, you're going to kind of know what's important and what's not important as you get into the game. But obviously Harper's Ferry, it's got this little guy here, just like Washington has this, industries and ironworks. It tells you when it's got important industrial things in it. We don't have many of those. We've got Richmond, but a lot of this stuff here is more rural. which hurts us early in the war. Now, this also showed us how we move. So let's click back on this guy again. You can see all I did was I clicked on him, I held the left mouse button down, and I drug him where I wanted him to go. And it tells you it's going to take 11 days to get there. This is all decided by uh, how hard the terrain is to get over. This is if we're just marching over here. Now for this guy, if we wanted to, we could put him on rail. We have rail here. So let's click on rail. As you'll see, these both turn to locomotives, and it takes 1 day to get there. So sure, why not? Well, why not? It is going to take some of our rail capacity, but as you remember, I believe our rail capacity, well, we can find out. Let's turn this off. Our rail capacity is 73. Let's click on rail. 1 day to take these guys. I mean, it's not a big force, right? And it only took it down by 1. So let's do that. Uh, but I am going to click off this for a second and show you how you get rid of a move. So while we're clicked on, this is I actually not touching anything right now. So once we clicked on him a minute ago, it shows us the move he's going to make. Let's say you want to get rid of that. Oh, gosh, darn it. Sorry. Hold on. Wrong button. Let's say you want to get rid of that. Oh, that's actually a good point. While we're not clicked on him, it does show the movement here, but it just makes this little circle. You know, that's to keep the clutter on the map down. But once you click on him, then it shows him again. There we go. Um, let's say we wanted to get rid of that. How would we do that? We just hit the delete key on a PC. And then we could do it again if we wanted. It's 11 days again. You could also, uh, you can, well, you can't do that. It's got to be the delete key when there's only one movement. Now, let's say we took this guy and we want to, we brought him all the way up here. Now you can see this progression that he will make. So you see all of his waypoints when we move him. Um, And then if I clicked on this, that pulls him back. Last destination aborted. Pull him again, we can pull him back. So that's how movement works. And I know that it confuses people. They don't like, now we can hit delete and he's back here. But what we're going to do is move him here. We're going to look down here at his special orders. So these crossed guns, and this is moved by rail. We're going to click that. You see it kind of lights up, and this is going to move him by rail. And it's only going to take 1 day, it tells you. I know a lot of people say they get confused by the AGEOD system of movement. I think once you're used to it, it's very intuitive. You saw how I moved him up here. There are also, by using shift, the shift key, that you can just set your own waypoints. So let's say we wanted to go to Johnstown. The computer will map that out to Johnstown, but let's say for some reason we wanted him to go to Gettysburg first and then to Johnstown. You can do that. You can also do that by rail, and we'll get into that later. Now, one thing we want to check out here that I actually had not done is what are this guy's orders? So we don't have a general or any kind of commander here, but they will still follow our general orders. General, two different kinds of general. They will take our direction and kind of figure out what to do on their own. So we're going to take what is this, defensive posture? That makes sense, right? I mean, we're going to Harpers Ferry here. Um, this is something the Union just abandoned. Uh, but we controlled it. So there's no reason to be offensive. So we can keep that defensive. And the orange here is no change to the standard rules. So when you're on a defensive posture, all this means is they will defend. If they get attacked, they're going to defend. If you did it on red, is hold at all cost. I don't think we need to do that yet. It's not that important. To die to the last man for Harper's Ferry. Uh, defend just means, again, they're going to defend if they get attacked. Blue would be defend and retreat. Your side will want to retreat starting with the third round. unless the attack against them is failing, and you have an increased chance of retreating. That's what we're going to pick. We don't want these guys to get all chewed up here. We just want them to sit up here to kind of give the Union something to think about. Like, oh, okay, we've got these guys up here. Interesting. What's going, what are they doing up there? But if they get attacked, we just want them to come right back. Um, so that's great. Or you could do, this is like feint and probe, retreat if engaged. So essentially, if there's any attack against them at all, they just start falling back. They don't want to mess around defending. They're more of a prober, or they're more of, you would do it with cavalry, where you don't want cavalry to get in a pitched fight. You just want them to get some information. So this is very helpful over here, showing you where things have been activated. So we also, okay, the Suffolk. Um, Militia, they can be important. Now you have Norfolk here. Norfolk is a very important base. This has been abandoned. Now you would not normally know that unless you'd played the game for a while. But again, we have another unrestricted Suffolk, another unrestricted militia. And let me tell you, you can move these guys from here. You could do it from here, or you could do it from here. Let's do it from here down here. So we take our guy, or can you? I guess you can't. Okay, we're going to take our guy, so scratch what I just said, and move him to Norfolk. It's going to take 7 days. We are going over a river, which would be a penalty, but there is no defense here. And you can see that because there are no ground units here. They do have a squadron here, which is this blue one. So they do have a Navy assets here, but they do not have any ground units at Norfolk. We're going to want to take that if we can, right? So to take something, we're going to want to be on an offensive posture, and we're going to want to sustain the attack. There's no reason not to. There's nothing here other than, some cooks and whatever else they left behind. So we are going to go take this with our militia. Now you may say, well, how are you finding these places other than you knew they existed? Well, what we're going to do here is look at click to hide stacks without a leader, with a leader, health of 50 and more. Uh, click to hide, these different forces. Click to hide locked or fixed forces. Done. So this is great, right? So we've hidden all of the fixed forces, and now we can see, what we've got here that can actually be moved this turn. So Carolina Department, we know all about that, right? We've got various naval squadrons, and we're going to deal with them next episode. We've now moved the Winchester Militia into Harpers Ferry. We've moved the Suffolk Militia into Norfolk here, so the big naval base here at Norfolk. Let's bring this up again. Now we have squadrons: Hunter Squadron, Lewis Cass Squadron, Dodge Squadron. These are all ships. Um, and we will, as I said, we will go look at those next time. We saw our 61 Division generals and our 61 Division generals pool at Richmond. So, we're not going to move them. There's no place to move them. And then we've got this one just random general out here, J.O. Shelby. As soon as the war started, he said, sign me up. He's located in Arkansas. Um, he's an excellent general. As you can see, Beauregard, who's going to end up leading our forces in the East for the first, year of the war, well, several months of the war, let's put it that way. He's a 4 strategic, 2 offensive, 4 defensive. And we'll get into what these mean later. Other than I can tell you, more is good. So Shelby is 6-4-4. That's just excellent. Um, Shelby is a one heck of a general. I think if we click on the flag, there we go. Look at this handsome Fu Manchu he's got working. As you can see, he's charismatic. He's an adept raider. He's a very fast mover, and he's a cavalryman. cavalryman. As you might imagine, we are going to put him in front or in charge of a cavalry group that's going to go into the north and cause problems. We're going to cause problems with their supply. We're going to cut rail lines. We're going to do all kinds of things with J.O. Shelby because he's one heck of a general, but he has a very low, when I say low, it means high, seniority. He's not very senior. So if we put him under the command of someone else, he is not going to be leading the stack. Or if we put him in with other generals, I should say. Obviously, if we're putting him underneath someone else, he's not going to command. But if we just put him in with a bunch of other one-star generals, his seniority is not very good. But he is a cavalryman, and so we are going to set him up with a ton of cavalry. Um, so I'm going to break right here. I'm going to try to keep these right around 40 minutes at the most. There's a lot going on. I think we've covered a lot. Um, Next time we will be taking another turn. We will talk about where we want J.O. Shelby to go. We will be coming down here to New Orleans, where you see a big anchor, um, and you see three for naval units. So we're going to be coming down here to Iberville, and we are going to look at Navy stuff. There we go. You got to click on the anchor to look at Navy stuff or on the number. So we are going to be looking at these different items. You can see that they're not very powerful. We don't have much of them. Here's old Ironsides. Here's the CSS Manassas. So we'll be dealing with iron ships. Mississippi Squadron, these go up the Mississippi River, as you might imagine, and we try to protect from the north coming down and also mess with shipping and whatnot. But we're going to get into that next episode. So thank you very much for joining me here on Strategy Gaming Dojo. I'm really enjoying this Civil War II. I think it's a great game if you can get to understand it. So hopefully you're enjoying this tutorial. If you are, please subscribe at the bottom if you haven't already. We're going to make, I think, 30, 40 episodes of this one and play the whole game through, maybe, all the way into the end game. So, again, if you're enjoying, please subscribe, and I will see you next time.